Lisa Kane sat at her desk in the Neptune monitoring station, watching the stars through the large window. She had worked there for 3 years, listening to radio signals from deep space. Most days were quiet. Today was different. The computer made a loud beeping sound. Lisa looked at her screen and saw something she had never seen before. A signal was coming from outside the solar system. It was not random noise or natural radiation. This signal had patterns. Someone was trying to talk to them. Lisa's hands shook as she typed commands into her computer. The signal was strong and clear. It was coming from a point in space, far beyond Pluto. She had been trained for this moment, but now that it was happening, she felt scared and excited at the same. Time Dutch, she pressed the emergency button that would alert Earth Command. Within minutes, her phone rang. Admiral Jack Morrison was on the other end. His voice was calm but serious. "Kane, tell me what you have," Morrison said. "Sir, it's a communication signal from outside our solar system. The computer is working to decode it now. This is real, Admiral. This is first contact." Morrison was quiet for a moment. "Send everything to Earth Command immediately. Do not discuss this with anyone else." 3 hours later, the message was decoded. Lisa read it with growing fear. The message was written in perfect English, which was impossible unless someone had been watching Earth for a long time. The message was from something called the Galactic Confederation. It said that 47 different alien species had been watching humanity for over 100 years. They had been listening to human radio and television broadcasts. They had seen human wars, violence, and what they called humanity's dangerous nature. Dr. Helen Ross arrived at Neptune Station the next day. She was Earth's top expert on the possibility of alien life. She read the message again and again, her face getting more worried each time. "They classify us as a Class 7 aggressive species," Helen told Admiral Morrison during a video call. "According to this message, that's the highest danger level they have." Morrison leaned forward. "What does that mean for us?" "It means they think we're too dangerous to exist as we are. Look at this part of the message." Helen pointed to a section. That made Morrison's blood run cold. The aliens explained that every species in their confederation had gone through something called pacification protocol before joining their group. This process changed the aliens' genetics to make them less aggressive and less territorial. They remove the parts of their brains that make them want to fight or compete, Helen explained. They think this is evolution. They think violence and competition are diseases that need to be cured. The message continued with an ultimatum. Humanity had 1 Earth year to decide. They could either submit to pacification and join the Confederation, or they would face defensive extermination to protect the galaxy from human aggression. Captain Ryan Cole had been sent to the edge of the solar system in his ship, the New Horizon, to gather more information. When he returned, he brought video footage that showed the true scale of what humanity was facing. The Confederation fleet was massive beyond imagination. Ships the size of cities floated in space, surrounded by smaller vessels that were still larger than anything humans had ever built. The technology looked like magic. Some ships seemed to bend space around them. Others appeared and disappeared as if they could control reality itself. "There are thousands of them," Ryan reported to. "The emergency session of world leaders. Maybe tens of thousands. Each ship could probably destroy our entire fleet by itself." President Maria Santos listened to all the reports with a stone face. She was a former military officer who had seen combat, but this was beyond anything she had ever imagined. When the briefings were over, she stood up slowly. "How long before the public finds out?" she asked. "Maybe days, maybe weeks," Morrison replied. "Too many people are involved now to keep it secret much longer." President Santos nodded. "And we tell them ourselves." The human race deserves to know what we're facing. 2 days later, President Santos stood before the United Nations General Assembly. The room was packed with representatives from every country on Earth. Cameras from around the world were broadcasting the speech live. "My fellow humans," Santos began, "today I must share news that will change our world forever. We are not alone in the universe, and we have been contacted by a confederation of alien species." The room erupted in noise. People shouted questions, gasped, and some even fainted. Santos waited for quiet and then continued. "These aliens have given us an ultimatum. They want us to change what makes us human. They want to remove our ability to fight, to compete, to defend ourselves. They say this is for the good of the galaxy." Santos paused and looked directly into the main camera. "I am here to tell you that the United States of America, and I believe all free nations of Earth, reject this ultimatum completely. We will not surrender what makes us human. We will not become slaves to beings who think freedom is a disease." The president's voice grew stronger. "They have given us 1 year to decide. We have decided already. Earth will not submit. Earth will not surrender. If they want to take our freedom, they will have to fight for it." The General Assembly erupted again, but this time it was not panic. It was defiance. Representatives from country after country stood up and applauded. The message was clear. Humanity would face the galaxy alone if necessary. In her final words, Santos looked at the camera again. "To any aliens who might be listening to this broadcast, know this. You have gravely underestimated the human spirit. We choose to remain free, whatever the cost." Dr. Peter Grant had not slept properly in weeks. His laboratory at the Colorado Space Research Center was filled with computer screens showing alien technology. Every piece of equipment the Confederation had allowed humans to see was being studied, with the intensity of people who knew their lives depended on understanding it. "Look at this," Peter said to his team, pointing at a holographic display. "Their ships don't have weapons designed to destroy things. Everything is built to capture and disable." His assistant, Dr. Lucy White, frowned at the data. "That makes sense if they have been pacifying species for thousands of years. They're not used to fighting enemies who actually fight back." Peter nodded. "Exactly. They expect every species to either surrender immediately or be so primitive that they can't put up real resistance. They've never fought anyone like us." Across the country, General Amy Foster was transforming Earth's military in ways the aliens could never expect. Instead of building massive spaceships to match the Confederation fleet, she was focusing on something completely different. "Forget about meeting them ship to ship," Amy told her commanders during a secret meeting in an underground bunker. "We can't win that kind of fight, but we can win a different kind of fight." Jake Sullivan, who had been running car factories before the crisis, was now the most important manufacturer on Earth. His factories were working around the clock, but they weren't building traditional weapons. "The aliens think like engineers," Jake explained to his workers. "Everything they do follows rules and procedures. They can't imagine an enemy that breaks the rules completely." His factories were producing thousands of small, fast spacecraft. Each one was basically a missile with a human pilot inside. The Confederation would never expect enemies willing to die to take out their ships. Meanwhile, Dr. Carl Brooks was making the most important discovery of all. As Earth's best expert on languages, he had been studying how the Confederation species communicated with each other. "It's incredible," Carl told Admiral Morrison during a briefing. 47 different species, all trying to talk to each other through a computer translation system. It works fine for normal conversations, but in a battle situation, ... double quotes. "What happens in a battle?" Morrison asked. "Chaos. The system gets overloaded. Orders get delayed or mistranslated. A fleet that size would have serious communication problems if they had to react quickly to something unexpected. Intelligence analyst Maya Johnson was discovering even more useful information. She had been studying every piece of data about the Confederation that humans could find. "Admiral, I don't think they've fought a real war in over 3,000 years, Maya reported. Every time they defended the galaxy, it was against species that either gave up immediately or were using stone tools." Morrison leaned back in his chair. "Are you telling me that the most powerful military force in the galaxy has no actual combat experience?" "That's exactly what I'm telling you, sir. They've forgotten how to fight because they've never had to." This information led to Operation Looking Glass, humanity's most dangerous mission yet. Commander Alex Turner volunteered to lead a small team into Confederation space using captured alien technology. "We need to see how they really work," Turner explained to his team. "We need to understand not just their technology, but how they think." The mission was incredibly risky. If the team was caught, it would give the Confederation all the information they needed about human capabilities. But without intelligence about the enemy, Earth's resistance would be blind. Turner's team included communications specialist Ben Carter, who would monitor Confederation military planning, and Dr. Lisa Harper, a psychologist who specialized in understanding how different cultures thought. "Remember," Turner told his team before they left, "we're not just gathering information about their ships and weapons. We need to understand their minds. That might be more important than anything else." Back on Earth, the entire planet was changing. Every factory, every laboratory, every military base was working toward the same goal. Humanity was preparing for a war unlike anything in their history. But humans were not preparing the way the Confederation expected. Instead of trying to match alien technology, they were preparing to fight in a completely human way. Schools began teaching every child basic military skills, not because children would fight in space, but because everyone needed to understand that humanity's survival depended on every person being ready to contribute. Cities were being fortified, not with energy shields like the aliens used, but with underground tunnels, hidden weapons, and escape routes. If the aliens tried to occupy Earth, they would find a population that refused to be controlled. Most importantly, human engineers were working on weapons the Confederation had never seen before. Not energy weapons or force fields, but simple, brutal devices designed for one purpose: destroying enemy ships, no matter what the cost. President Santos addressed the world again as the year progressed. "The aliens think they understand us because they've watched our television shows and listened to our radio. But they've never seen what humans do when we fight for our survival." She was right. The Confederation was preparing for what they expected to be a simple pacification mission. Their plans assumed humans would either surrender quickly or put up only token resistance before being overwhelmed. They had studied human technology and found it primitive. They had analyzed human military tactics and found them inefficient. They had no idea that humans were capable of changing everything about how they fought when their freedom was at stake. As the deadline approached, Confederation observers reported back to their fleet commanders that Earth appeared to be in chaos. Human governments were spending enormous resources on what appeared to be useless weapons. Human military forces were training in tactics that made no logical sense. The aliens were confident that their assessment was correct. Humans were an aggressive but primitive species that would either surrender when they saw the size of the Confederation fleet or be easily defeated by superior technology and numbers. They had no idea that everything they were seeing was exactly what humanity wanted them to see. The chaos was organized. The seemingly useless weapons were designed for a specific purpose. The illogical tactics were perfect for fighting an enemy that had forgotten how to adapt. As the year neared its end, both sides were ready. The Confederation fleet began moving toward Earth, confident in their moral superiority and technological advantage. Meanwhile, Earth prepared to show the galaxy something it had not seen in 3,000 years, a species that would rather die. Free than live as slaves, the stage was set for a confrontation that would change the galaxy forever. Commander Alex Turner felt his stomach tighten as his small ship passed through the edge of Confederation space. The vessel looked like an alien scout ship from the outside, but inside it was packed with human recording equipment and 3 of Earth's best specialists. "Remember," Turner whispered to his team, "we observe and record everything. No matter what we see, we do not interfere." Ben Carter sat at the communication station, his headphones picking up Confederation military chatter. Dr. Lisa Harper studied alien psychology from intercepted personal communications. So far, everything seemed normal for a peaceful galactic civilization. That changed when they reached the Kepler system. "Commander, you need to see this," Ben said, his voice tight with shock. Through the ship's viewports, they could see a planet that was dying. Massive Confederation ships surrounded the world, firing beams of energy down to the surface. But these were not the quick, destructive weapons humans would use. These beams were slow and methodical, designed to eliminate all life while preserving the planet itself. "They're sterilizing the entire world," Lisa whispered. "Every living thing down there is being killed, but they're doing it like cleaning a room." Turner watched alien commanders coordinate the destruction with the same calm efficiency humans might use to organize a construction project. There was no emotion, no anger, no hatred. They were simply removing what they saw as a problem. "Listen to this," Ben said, translating the alien communications. "They're calling it planetary hygiene. They say the species down there refused pacification, so they had to be cleaned away for the good of galactic health." The team recorded everything, but Turner could see that his people were struggling with what they witnessed. This was not war, as humans understood it. This was extermination, carried out with medical precision. Over the following weeks, they visited 12 different Confederation worlds. What they found was worse than anyone on Earth had imagined. The pacified species lived in perfect order. There was no crime, because no one could feel anger. There was no war, because no one could feel territorial. There was no competition, because no one could feel the desire to be better than others. But there was also no art that expressed real emotion, no music that stirred the soul, no literature that challenged ideas, no scientific discoveries that came from curiosity rather than assigned research. "They're not people anymore," Lisa said during one of their covert observations. "They're more like biological machines. They function perfectly, but they don't really live." Dr. Harper spent hours watching alien children play. Their games had rules but no excitement. They learned but never questioned. They followed instructions but never rebelled, even in small ways. Human children fight and argue and get into trouble because they're learning to be independent, Lisa explained to Turner. These alien children are learning to be obedient. They'll never grow up to be individuals. Ben made an even more disturbing discovery while monitoring Confederation military communications. The aliens were already planning Earth's invasion, and they had assigned it a threat level barely above a natural disaster. They expect total victory within 72 hours of arrival, Ben reported. The fleet commander actually complained about being assigned to such an easy mission. He wanted to be given something more challenging. Turner realized that the Confederation's arrogance was both terrifying and potentially useful. They think we're going to fight like everyone else. They've faced. They have no idea what humans are actually capable of. The team's most important discovery came when they observed a Confederation war planning session. The aliens spent days discussing how to minimize damage to Earth's infrastructure during the pacification process. They were planning where to build, processing centers to modify human genetics. They had already chosen which humans would be kept as examples of the unmodified state for their museums. They're not preparing for a war, Turner realized. They're preparing for a colonization. They think the hard part will be cleaning up after we surrender. But the team also discovered critical weaknesses in Confederation technology and tactics. Their ships were heavily armored against energy weapons, but had weak points that could be exploited by kinetic impacts. Their communication systems could be disrupted by specific types of interference. Most importantly, their commanders had never learned to adapt to unexpected situations. Every battle plan they make follows the same pattern, Ben observed. First, they demonstrate superior firepower. Second, they demand surrender. Third, they begin pacification procedures. They have no backup plans because they've never needed any. Dr. Harper made the most important discovery about Confederation psychology. They literally cannot understand why any species would choose death over pacification. To them, it's like choosing to die rather than take medicine for a disease. This meant that human tactics based on sacrifice, martyrdom, or fighting hopeless battles were completely outside their experience. They had no strategies for dealing with enemies who would rather destroy themselves than be captured. The infiltration team spent 3 months gathering intelligence before returning to Earth. When they arrived, they brought back complete technical specifications for Confederation ships, detailed recordings of their planning sessions, and most importantly, a complete psychological profile of the enemy. They're not evil, Turner reported to Admiral Morrison and President Santos. They genuinely believe they're helping the galaxy by removing aggression and competition. But that makes them even more dangerous, because they'll never question whether what they're doing is right. The intelligence confirmed humanity's strategy. The Confederation expected a primitive species that would either surrender quickly or be easily overwhelmed by superior technology. They had no experience with enemies who fought unconventionally or who were willing to accept massive casualties to achieve victory. We have one advantage they can't take away from us, Turner concluded. They've forgotten how to really fight because they've never had to. We're about to remind the galaxy what war actually looks like. President Santos studied the intelligence reports with growing determination. The infiltration had revealed that the Confederation was not just humanity's enemy, but the enemy of freedom itself. Every species in the galaxy had been robbed of what made them truly alive. Commander Turner, Santos said, your mission has given us more than intelligence about the enemy. You've shown us what we're really fighting for. We're not just defending Earth. We're defending the right of every thinking being in the galaxy to remain who they are. The information from the infiltration would shape every aspect of Earth's defense strategy. But more than that, it had revealed the true scope of what was at stake. This was not just a war for human survival. It was a war for the soul of the galaxy itself. As Turner's team prepared their final reports, they knew that everything they had learned would soon be put to the ultimate test. The Confederation fleet was already moving toward Earth, confident in their superiority and certain of their victory. They had no idea that humanity was about to show them the difference between conquering the weak and facing the truly free. Admiral Jack Morrison stood on the bridge of the orbital fortress New Gibraltar, watching the largest fleet in galactic history emerge from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 10,000 ships spread across space like a mechanical constellation, each one large enough to destroy entire cities. My God, whispered Captain Susan Lee, commander of the Human Strike Force. How are we supposed to fight that? Morrison kept his expression calm, but inside he felt the same fear that every human must be feeling. Earth's entire defense fleet consisted of only 300 ships, most of them converted civilian vessels and hastily built fighters. Against the Confederation armada, they looked like toys. Remember what Commander Turner's intelligence told. U.S., Morrison said to his staff. They expect us to follow the same pattern as every other species. Demonstrate our strength, demand negotiations, then surrender when we realize we're outmatched. The Confederation fleet took position in a perfect formation. At its center was the massive command ship of Fleet Admiral Zeeth Tar, the primary species. Greatest military leader. The alien had commanded dozens of pacification missions and never lost a single ship. Zeeth Tar opened communications with Earth, speaking through the universal translator in perfect, emotionless English. Primitive humans of the third planet. I am Fleet Admiral Zeeth Tar of the Galactic Confederation. You have rejected our generous offer of pacification. This is regrettable, but not unexpected from an unmodified species. President Santos responded from the command bunker beneath Washington. Admiral Zeeth Tar, I am President Maria Santos of Earth. We have indeed rejected your offer, and we reject it again now. Leave our system immediately. Zeeth Tar's response came with what humans interpreted as alien amusement. Your courage is noted but irrelevant. You have seen our fleet. Surrender now, and your pacification will be carried out with minimal discomfort. Continue to resist, and we will be forced to implement defensive protocols. Morrison looked at his communications officer. Tell all ships to prepare for Operation First Strike. What happened next had never occurred in 3,000 years of Confederation military history. Instead of demonstrating their puny strength and then beginning negotiations, the humans attacked first. Captain Susan Lee led the initial assault, but not against the main Confederation fleet. Her fighters targeted the communication relays and coordination ships scattered throughout the alien formation. Using intelligence gathered by Turner's team, they knew exactly which ships were vital to Confederation command structure. All fighters, remember your mission. Lee broadcast on a secure channel. We're not trying to destroy their main fleet. We're trying to blind and confuse them. Human ships moved in patterns the Confederation had never seen. Instead of maintaining safe distances and exchanging fire like civilized opponents, human pilots flew their fighters directly into alien formations. Some ships were equipped with nuclear warheads designed to detonate on impact. Others carried electronic warfare systems that scrambled alien communications. Confederation fleet commanders found themselves facing something impossible. The human ships were not trying to win a traditional space battle. They were conducting suicide attacks against specific targets with surgical precision. Sir, we're losing communication with Sectors 7 through 12, reported Zeeth Tar's communications officer. The human vessels are deliberately ramming our relay ships. Zeeth Tar could not comprehend what he was seeing. Why are they destroying themselves? Do they not understand that they cannot win this way? Back on Earth, Colonel Tim Brady was coordinating the planet's surface defenses. Like everything else about humanity's strategy, these defenses were designed to break every rule of civilized warfare. Hidden mass drivers on Earth's surface-launched projectiles at near-light speed. These were not energy weapons that could be deflected by shields. They were chunks of metal accelerated to incredible velocities, designed to punch through any armor by sheer kinetic force. Orbital platforms that had been disguised as civilian satellites suddenly activated, revealing weapon systems the Confederation had never seen. Nuclear-powered lasers, particle beam cannons, and missile clusters began targeting alien ships that came too close to Earth. Their strategy makes no logical sense, Zeeth Tar's tactical officer reported. They are accepting catastrophic losses to inflict minimal damage on our fleet. But the minimal damage was adding up. For the first time in millennia, Confederation ships were being destroyed. Not disabled for capture, not forced to surrender, but actually blown apart by enemies who seemed to care nothing for their own survival. More disturbing to the Confederation commanders was the human communications they were intercepting. Instead of panic or despair, Human pilots were actually joking with each other as they flew suicide missions. Tiger 7 to Tiger Laid came one transmission that Seftar's translators picked up. I've got a clear shot at their command relay. Tell my wife this one's for our kids. Copy that, Tiger 7. Give them hell. The alien fleet officers could not process what they were hearing. The humans were fighting with enthusiasm, not desperation. They seemed to be enjoying a battle they could not possibly win. As the battle continued, the Confederation's superior technology began to work against them. Their advanced tactical computers could not predict human actions. Because human tactics were based on concepts the computers had been programmed to consider impossible. The translation matrix that allowed 47 species to coordinate began breaking down under the stress of rapid-fire communications. Orders were delayed, misunderstood, or lost entirely as the system struggled to keep up with the chaos of actual combat. Admiral Morrison watched the battle unfold from New Gibraltar and knew that humanity's real victory was not in the ships they were destroying. It was in the fact that they were fighting at all. Captain Lee, begin Phase 2, Morrison ordered. Phase 2 was the most important part of humanity's strategy. Instead of keeping their military secrets hidden, they began broadcasting everything. Complete technical specifications for human weapons, detailed tactical manuals, and most importantly, recordings of human pilots explaining why they chose to fight rather than surrender. These broadcasts were not aimed at the Confederation fleet. They were aimed at every species in the galaxy that had been pacified centuries ago. President Santos made one final broadcast as the battle raged around Earth. To every thinking being in the galaxy, we are humanity. We are fighting not just for our freedom, but for the idea that freedom is worth dying for. We share our knowledge freely because we believe every species has the right to defend itself. The effect of these broadcasts would not be felt immediately, but they carried something the galaxy had not heard in 3,000 years. The voice of a species that refused to surrender its essential nature, no matter what the cost. As Earth's defenses continued their impossible fight, Zeftar found himself facing a situation no Confederation commander had ever encountered. His fleet was still overwhelming humanity's forces, but humans were making them pay a price for every victory. More importantly, they were broadcasting their defiance to the entire galaxy, spreading ideas that could destroy everything the Confederation had built. The battle for Earth was becoming something much larger than a simple pacification mission. It was becoming a test of whether the galaxy's enforced peace was worth preserving, or whether some things were more important than safety. For the first time in his long career, Zeftar began to wonder if the Confederation might be fighting the wrong war. Captain Julie Fox gripped the controls of her damaged destroyer as alien fire tore through space around her. Half her crew was dead, her engines were failing, and her ship would not survive another 10 minutes of combat. But she was still broadcasting. This is Captain Julie Fox of the Earth Defense Force, speaking to anyone in the galaxy who can hear this signal, she said into her communication system. We are not livestock to be neutered. We are not diseases to be cured. We are humanity, and we choose our own fate. Her words were being transmitted across the galaxy by the most powerful communication system humanity had ever built. Every species, every world, every individual in Confederation space was hearing the voice of someone who refused to surrender her freedom. They tell you that peace is worth any price, Julie continued as her ship shook from another impact. They tell you that safety is more important than choice. We tell you that a life without the right to choose is not life at all. On thousands of worlds across the galaxy, beings who had been pacified for centuries stopped what they were doing to listen. Many had not heard words like these since their own species had submitted to Confederation control. Dr. Helen Ross, monitoring galactic communications from her bunker on Earth, was the first to notice what was happening. Admiral Morrison, We're picking up responses to our broadcasts. They're coming from everywhere. The responses started small. A few individuals on distant worlds asking questions that their species had not asked for generations. Scientists wondering why they had stopped seeking new discoveries. Artists remembering forms of expression that had been forgotten. Soldiers questioning why their training focused only on peacekeeping and never on defense. But as humanity's broadcasts continued, something unprecedented began to happen. The genetic modifications that had pacified entire species started to break down. Confederation's pacification process had not completely removed the genes for aggression, curiosity, and independence. It had only suppressed them. Now, as billions of beings across the galaxy heard humanity's defiant message, those suppressed traits began to reassert themselves. On the world of Kellerus Prime, a worker named Vorth felt something he had never experienced before: anger. He was angry that his people had given up their right to explore the stars. He was angry that they had traded their dreams for safety. For the first time in his life, Vorth wanted to fight. Similar awakenings were happening on every Confederation world. Species that had been docile for millennia began to remember what they had lost. Not just the capacity for violence, but the capacity for genuine choice. Fleet Admiral Zeftar was receiving reports from across the galaxy that terrified him more than the human resistance. His own people were beginning to question. Orders. Confederation governors were reporting civil unrest on worlds that had been peaceful for centuries. "Sir," his communications officer reported with confusion, "we're receiving thousands of transmissions from Confederation worlds. They're asking us to stop the pacification mission." Zeftar could not believe what he was hearing. "That is impossible. Our people understand the necessity of maintaining galactic order." But the reports kept coming. On world after world, beings who had never questioned Confederation authority were demanding answers. Why had their species given up the right to defend themselves? Why had they allowed their essential nature to be changed? Why had they traded freedom for security? Admiral Morrison watched the galactic situation develop and knew that humanity had achieved something far greater than military victory. They had sparked a revolution of consciousness that was spreading faster than any physical force could stop it. "All ships begin Operation Prometheus," Morrison ordered. Operation Prometheus was humanity's final gambit. Instead of trying to defeat the Confederation fleet through force, Earth began transmitting complete specifications for every weapon, every tactic, and every piece of military technology they had developed. They shared the designs for kinetic weapons that could punch through energy shields. They broadcast the tactics for asymmetric warfare that could allow smaller forces to defeat larger ones. Most importantly, they transmitted the philosophy that made all of it possible, the belief that some things were worth dying for. The effect was immediate and galaxy-spanning. On worlds where beings were rediscovering their capacity for independence, they suddenly had the tools to defend that independence. President Santos made one final broadcast as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. "To every species that is hearing this message, we offer you the greatest gift we can give: the knowledge of how to protect your freedom. Use it wisely, but use it. The galaxy belongs to the free, not to those who would make slaves of us all." The Confederation command structure began to collapse as the revolution spread. Military commanders found themselves facing mutinies as their own crews remembered what they had given up. Governors lost control of their worlds as populations demanded the right to govern themselves. Zeftar stood on his command bridge, watching his perfect galactic order crumble in real time. For 3,000 years, the Confederation had maintained peace through enforced pacification. Now, in the space of a few hours, that peace was dissolving as billions of beings rediscovered their will to resist. "Sir, what are your orders?" his tactical officer asked. Zethtar looked at the human fleet, still fighting desperately against impossible odds. They had lost hundreds of ships and thousands of lives, but they were still broadcasting their message of defiance to the galaxy. For the first time in his long life, Zethtar felt something he had not experienced since his own species' pacification. Doubt. Had the Confederation been wrong? Was the peace they had created actually worth the price they had paid for it? Sir? The tactical officer asked again. Zethtar made a decision that shocked even himself. All ships cease fire. Begin withdrawal to the edge of the system. Sir, we have not completed the pacification mission. The mission cannot be completed. Zethtar replied. These humans have shown the galaxy something we thought was extinct. They have reminded every species what it means to choose freedom over safety. As the Confederation fleet pulled back, humanity's battered defenders could hardly believe what they were seeing. They had not won through superior firepower or tactical genius. They had won by proving that the will to remain free was more powerful than any weapon. The aftermath came quickly. Across the galaxy, species that had been pacified for centuries began demanding independence from Confederation control. Some worlds declared complete autonomy. Others formed new alliances, based on voluntary cooperation rather than enforced submission. Dr. Helen Ross received communications from dozens of species, all asking the same question. How do we learn to be free again? The Confederation did not disappear overnight, but it was forever changed. The perfect galactic order that had been maintained through pacification was replaced by something messier, but more genuine. A galaxy where species chose their own paths, defended their own interests, and took responsibility for their own destinies. Earth became the center of a new galactic alliance, not because humans were the strongest or most advanced species, but because they had been willing to fight for principles that others had forgotten. Years later, when historians across the galaxy studied the brief war that changed everything, they would note that humanity's greatest victory was not military. It was philosophical. They had proven that the galaxy's greatest threat was not aggression or competition, but the willingness to surrender everything that made life meaningful in exchange for safety. The war ended before it truly began, because humanity had reminded the galaxy of a simple truth. Freedom is not something that can be given or taken away by others. It is something that must be chosen, defended, and preserved by those who value it more than life itself. As Captain Julie Fox had said in her final broadcast before her ship was destroyed, we are humanity, and we choose our own fate. And that choice became available to every thinking being in the galaxy once again.